We got an edge rusher coming to Detroit on Mock Draft Monday.
You are Locked On Lions, your daily Detroit Lions podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, let's go, everybody. It's another week of Locked On Lions right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Matt Derry with you. It is a perfect Monday, March 24th into Tuesday, March 25th. Thanks for making us your first listen. Thank you for checking us out wherever you get your podcasts. It could be anywhere: Spotify, Apple, the Odyssey app, YouTube. We thank you for being with us each and every day right here on Locked On Lions. Think about this, folks. 1 month from today, Thursday, April 24th, is the first round of the NFL draft. How awesome is that? From Green Bay, nonetheless. Locked On Lions today brought to you by our friends at Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Thank you to our everydayers that are out there that watch and listen to the podcast daily. We appreciate all of you. We'll get you a list of some everydayers a little bit later on this week, working on some guests for this week as well. It is Mock Draft Monday. We will go over a mock draft. We're going to dive into theathletic.com's latest mock from today, where, yes, the Lions draft an edge rusher, but they don't get the edge rusher that I think they want because he goes a pick before theirs. We will explain coming up momentarily. A lot of rumors, a lot of smoke, a lot of smelling some rumors about Will Hernandez, a potential guard signing for the Lions that remains unsigned as of right now, coming off an ACL injury. Heard Detroit's name mentioned. We'll get into that. Had an interesting discussion today about Terrion Arnold with my main man, Thomas Craig, this morning. Come on, Craig. And I wanted to share that with the listeners as well. And yes, we do have some Aaron Rodgers news. And the news is he's still a tool. All of that right here on Locked On Lions on this Monday edition. All right, it is Mock Draft Monday. We love having fun with this each and every Monday throughout draft season, which pretty much is, Super Bowl until now. We go through a mock draft. We talk about it. We talk about the options for Detroit. The Locked On mock draft, actually, where all the Locked On hosts make their picks, is going on today. So we'll have that for you coming up, I think, next week or so, which will be kind of cool as well. I'll let you know who I took for the Lions. I have no idea because it's going on right now. The Lions picked 28th. So got a little time here left before the Lions select, and I select on the Locked On Podcast Network. But today's mock draft comes to you from our friends at theathletic.com. One of their draft and NFL writers, Ben Standig, puts together his post-NFL free agency mock draft. Number one, he has Tennessee taking Cam Ward. Today is Miami's pro day down at the U. The Titans have taken about 10 different people down there. Their GM, their assistant GM, their head coach. Everybody's down there at Miami to take a look at Cam Ward. And in this mock draft from The Athletic, they've got Ward going number 1 to Tennessee. They've got the Browns taking Shedeur Sanders number 2. So back-to-back quarterbacks being taken in this mock draft. Give you the rest of the top 5. Giants, Travis Hunter. Patriots, Abdul Carter. Imagine arguably the best player in this draft dropping to number 4 in New England. That'd be pretty sweet, I think, for the Pats, who, of course, already have their quarterback in Drake May. And Jacksonville at 5 taking Mason Graham from Michigan. Actually, in this mock draft, the Raiders would be taking Ashton Genty, the running back from Boise State, which if you take a running back at 6, you need help. But the Raiders are the Raiders. Then as you move down this mock draft, I see Shamar Stewart, a guy the Lions like, at 15, going to the Falcons. Jihad Campbell would be going to Arizona at 16 in this mock draft. We've heard Kenneth Grant's name mocked to the Lions if, in fact, he were to fall. 21 to Pittsburgh in this mock draft. Jackson Dart in a trade going to the Giants at 24. Interesting. Mike Green, the edge from Marshall, in a trade with the Rams and Bills. Buffalo would move up to 26 to take Green. Then the guy that I think, if he's on the board at 28, I think Brad Holmes would sprint the card up to the podium for, I know that doesn't really happen, but I like to use that analogy, would be Donovan Ezeraku, the edge rusher from Boston College. So what does that leave for the Lions at number 28? In this mock draft, The Athletic says the Lions would select James Pearce Jr., the edge rusher from Tennessee. We've had lots of discussions about JPJ on this very podcast. But Ben, the author, Ben, what do I remember? Forget his name. I just told you his name, and I forgot it. It's been that kind of Monday. Ben Standig writes about the Lions selection at 28. Without whether an end or tackle, the Lions look for defensive line depth. The 6'5" Pearce's athleticism, his 1.56 time in the 10-yard split, led all defensive ends at the combine and college production. 17.5 sacks, 28 TFL since 2023 are worthy of top 20 status. Football character questions seemingly have been raised with enough eyebrows to drop Pearce into potentially the late first round range. There you have it. James Pearce going to the Lions at 28. But here's the thing. And this is what the author wrote. And again, I will stick by it. I don't think the Lions are drafting him. I don't know what the off the field things are other than a traffic stop where he was rude to cops a couple of years ago. Everybody seems to say, and this includes Brett Whitefield, who was on our show last week, and Brett was at the combine and Brett was at the Senior Bowl, is that the whispers are that he's not a great teammate, and that James Pearce Jr. sometimes needs to be motivated to play. So if those are red flags, Brad Holmes is not drafting him. It's interesting. Like I said, the locked on mock draft is happening right now. If Pearce is on the board at 28, I don't think, as me drafting as Brad Holmes, I don't think I'm pulling the trigger on this. I look at all these players that the Lions have passed up over the last few years, whether it's free agency, whether it's the draft, whatever it is. They've got to be a fit for this culture and this locker room. Period. There have been plenty of talented players that Brad Holmes just bypasses. And I don't think Brad doesn't think they can't play. I just think he doesn't view them as players that fit the Dan Campbell mold, that fits this locker room. You've got to be a Lion. You've got to care about your teammates. You got to have a great motor. You got to want to be in Detroit. You got to want to love football. And James Pearce Jr., there's just too many questions. Could they use an edge rusher who ran a 4.8 40 and had the best 10-yard split at the combine, whatever that is? Of course they could. But I think the Lions, if all those guys are gone, if Ezeraku's gone and Green is gone and Stewart's gone, I think the Lions might take an offensive lineman at 28. I think they might take, Jihad Campbell slip somehow. And in this mock, he didn't. I know it's another linebacker, but I think Brad Holmes is taking the guy that's highest on their board, no matter the position. I think they could take another corner. If you missed the show on Saturday that we did here on Locked On Lions, yes, I'm well aware that the Lions have just signed 2 free agent cornerbacks, Rock Ya-Sin and Avonte Maddox. Little secret for you. Neither of them are very good. They're mild upgrades over Kindle Vildor, if that. These are guys that are going to fight for roster spots. They're going to be backups. There could be a chance if the Lions love a corner at 28 and he's high on their board, that's where they go. And they always figure it out. And I'm well aware. You got DJ Reed on one side, you got Terrion Arnold on the other side, and you got Amik Robertson. But as we saw last year in the playoff game, especially when Robertson got hurt, Carlton Davis was already out, and the Lions were down to Khalil Dorsey before he got hurt. And Terrion Arnold and who knows who was playing corner toward the end of that game. Vildor. You can never have enough corners. But I don't think James Pearce Jr., whose off-field questions have arisen during this draft process, is going to be taken by the Lions. Do I think his talent is a fit? Yes, of course. But knowing Brad Holmes like the way we do, I don't see it. But that is who the Athletic has the Lions taking in this mock draft today from the author, again, Ben Standig. And this was penned today by Standig. So we'll have to wait and see. Any other players of note very quickly? Walter Nolan is number 32 in this mock draft of Philly, the D tackle from Ole Miss. And I think that could be another possibility for Brad Holmes and the Lions too. I think he's a really, really good football player. Very, very good. All right. Coming up next, a lot of rumors out there. Rumors about Will Hernandez coming to Detroit. I don't have any insight, but I do have some knowledge of Will Hernandez and what the money would look like. And I think it would fit. I'll tell you about that coming up next, right here on Locked On Lions. We are proudly brought to you today by our friends at Monarch Money. Have you ever checked your bank account and wonder, where's all my money? Where did it all go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it is easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. Your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending all in one place. So you just stop managing your money and start building wealth. All right. All in one convenience with Monarch Money. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use one app, Monarch, to check your finances, track your spending, and even plan long-term goals. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year. Thank you to our friends at Monarch Money. And folks, March Madness is here. We're at the Sweet 16. Michigan's in. Michigan State's in. They're going to be playing at the same time. Or at the same time. They're going to be playing in the same venue in Atlanta Friday night. It is very, very exciting. And FanDuel is giving you the chance to get in on the action like never before. Right now, new customers at FanDuel can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's 200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories and even who's cutting down the nets, right? Got your eye on a few underdogs here late. Not a lot of underdogs are around left yet. I mean, I love Colorado State. I told you about them. I like Drake. They won a game. I think Arkansas, even as a 10 seed, is still pretty dangerous, but it's been very, very chalky. FanDuel app is great too. It's simple to use. And when you win, you get paid instantly. No waiting around. So visit FanDuel.com and get in on the college hoops action all tournament long with FanDuel. It's a Monday, Locked On Lions, everybody, right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Appreciate you being with us and checking us out again, wherever you get your podcasts. Appreciate you. And please, if you haven't subscribed and checked us out on the YouTube side, you should. We appreciate you doing that as well. I got to stop saying appreciate. All right. There is a player. There are plenty of players still available in free agency, including the Lions' own Zadarius Smith, whom the Lions cut a couple of weeks ago. He's still around. A lot of players, a lot of veterans that still are looking for homes. I saw today veteran safety Julian Blackmon, ex of the Colts, was visiting the Carolina Panthers. I'm going to get to Aaron Rodgers a little bit later on in the program. But one guy that is still available and heard a lot of rumors about, and there's been some smoke and there's been some online chatter that the Lions have been talking to, and this has not been confirmed. I've seen no reports, just people online saying, oh, this is what I've heard, that the Lions could be interested in right guard Will Hernandez, who has spent the last 2 years with the Arizona Cardinals, but last year tore his ACL. Hernandez had a very good 2 seasons with Arizona after signing a 2-year, $9 million deal. This is a guy that's 29 years of age, struggled with the New York Giants, went over to Arizona, was kind of a backup to start, then became a starter and did pretty well. In the latest ESPN.com article about free agents that were still available, they said that teams like the Ravens, Raiders, and Seahawks could be a fit for Will Hernandez. ESPN's Bill Barnwell writes, before the injury, Hernandez had quietly emerged as one of the league's best guards. After an uneven 4-year run with the Giants, he found a home in the Arizona desert. Between 22 and 23, Hernandez ranked in the top 10 among guards in a pass block win rate and run block win rate. Say that 4 times fast. Only other guards who ranked in the top 10 across both seasons were the Eagles' Landon Dickerson and the Cowboys' Zach Martin. The Lions' right guard situation is kind of in flux right now. You heard Brett Whitefield last week. Brett talked about it. He wants to see Graham Glasgow, now that Kevin Zeitler's gone, move back over to right guard where he had success 2 years ago. And Christian Mahogany go to left guard, the Lions' 6th-round pick from last year that when he played, remember, he was very sick during training camp and missed a lot of time, but Christian Mahogany is an up-and-comer and is a guy that's under team control, pretty cheap. Put him at left guard, move Glasgow back to right where maybe he has more success. And maybe we'll see the Graham Glasgow of 2023, not what we saw last year. But if the Lions want to go the cheap route and wait patiently on a guy that is a veteran that might not be ready for the start of the season, Will Hernandez only made $4.5 million last year. Maybe a 1-year, $4 million deal, similar to what Kevin Zeitler got. Zeitler's was at 6 last year. For Will Hernandez would be intriguing. And then you put Hernandez out there as some insurance for Graham Glasgow. I would not be opposed to that at all. But what we have seen from Brad Holmes in free agency, especially the last, 4 or 5 days, is 1-year deal palooza. It's been a 1-year deal, the 1-year deal diner, as Mike Valeni would say. So Will Hernandez is a guy to keep your eye on. 29 years of age, coming back from a torn ACL. Again, likely won't be ready for the start of the season. But could be somebody that the Lions add. I'm very surprised that we sit here on March 24th and what are we, a full week now into free agency? Was it last week that we started or 2 weeks ago? I can't even remember. But we have 2 weeks. We have not seen any movement at all on the Will Hernandez front. But I've seen a lot of stories online, people saying, oh, he's been linked to the Lions. But I've not seen where he's done any visits, whether he's talked to the Lions, just that he's been connected to Detroit. Lions could always use offensive linemen. Coyote Awoshika, a guy that was a backup that started a few games. He's a free agent. He hasn't been signed yet. So there are still veteran players available for Detroit to look at. I think Will Hernandez is a pretty good football player. Kind of found himself with the Cardinals. Speaking of good football players, I was sitting this morning having breakfast and talking taxes with the great Thomas Craig over at Baker Tilly. Thomas is great. He and my guy Kurt Siebenaller are awesome and great to work with. And Thomas and I were talking Lions. He said, what do you think of Terrion Arnold's season this past year? And I know there was an article at prideofdetroit.com over the weekend. Brian Baldinger was doing a tape review on Twitter and basically was talking about Terrion Arnold and sees Arnold really sees him making a big jump from year 1 to year 2. And I was talking about it with Thomas this morning, and I said the same thing. Terrion Arnold, I think, got a bad rap last year. I think he really struggled the first couple of weeks. Week 2 against Tampa Bay, he was brutal against the Bucs. It was his lowest rated game of the year, too, from Pro Football Focus, where he graded out at a 33.2, which really hurt his overall grade. He had no other graded games in the 30s and had just 2 games where he graded out in the 40s the rest of the season. The game against the Texans and the game against the Bills. And look, the entire defense against Josh Allen was horrible. He finished with a grade of 50.8, which is not good. But I think it's a little unfair. I think Terrion Arnold is grabby and handsy. I think Terrion Arnold is physical. But for a rookie cornerback, being surrounded by everybody else on the team was injured on his defense. Carlton Davis went down. Khalil Dorsey at the end of the year went down. Amik Robertson at the end of the year went down. Ennis Rakestraw, 2nd round pick, who came into the league with Terrion Arnold, barely played. He was banged up. I think it was a tough year for the rookie corner, but I think I like his game. I'm going back and thinking about it. There were games you didn't hear Terrion Arnold's name, and that's a good thing. And in a division that has arguably the best wide receiver in the game in Justin Jefferson, we all know about the job that Amik Robertson did on Jefferson in week 18. But I think all in all, Terrion Arnold is trending up. I think this is a player that at the start of last year struggled. But what do you expect from a rookie playing on a contending team with high expectations, playing a ton of man coverage? No rookie played more man coverage last year than Terrion Arnold. Fact. And I think he held up okay. He had his bad moments. He had his pass interference calls. He is a little bit too handsy. But I like the player. And I agree with Brian Baldinger. I think next year we're going to see a major jump from Terrion Arnold. You know how difficult it is to be a rookie corner in the NFL and immediately start and have these high expectations. And yes, I get it. Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean in Philly both had monster year. I mean, DeJean had a monster year. PFF graded him out very, very high in the 80s. All right. And that was a guy I loved coming out of college. So maybe, you could sit back and go, oh man, the Lions passed on DeJean and he ended up in Philly and this sucks. I get that. All right. And you can make that argument. But I think overall, I think Terrion Arnold is going to have just as good a career, if not better, than DeJean when it's all said and done. I truly believe that. Not an easy task to be a part of something like last year, especially with all the injuries. And then the Lions had games that without Aiden Hutchinson and there was no pass rush. What do you expect from this kid? I'm excited about his ceiling, and I think he's going to be a really, really good football player. I'm telling you. PFF grade aside, I think he was better than people gave him credit for. Let's just say that. All right, coming up next, yes, Aaron Rodgers reportedly visited the Steelers. Whee! I have a minor take on Rodgers I want to get to coming up next year. All right, listen up. I got to say something. Go back to 2023, or excuse me, 2022, the end of the season, week 18, almost 3 years ago. The Detroit Lions, led by Kirby Joseph, ended Aaron Rodgers' reign in Green Bay. All right. That was really the last time that there was a lot of and enough respect, I think, on Aaron Rodgers' name. We know what happened in 2023. Goes to the Jets, first game of the year, snap, Achilles, done for the year. Last year, he and the Jets were a complete dumpster fire. It was an embarrassment. They were terrible. He wasn't very good. Toward the end, he got better. But all in all, it was so bad that Aaron Rodgers, former Lion rival, all right, for years tormented Detroit in Green Bay. But now at age 41, Aaron Rodgers is looking for a new home. And the Jets basically told him, take a walk in favor of Justin Fields. They're going to pay Justin Fields $20 million a year, but they're not going to pay Aaron Rodgers what he wants. Now it's been in the news over the weekend. Aaron Rodgers reportedly had a 6-hour meeting with the Pittsburgh Steelers. It was a good meeting, left without signing a contract. And again, I'm recording this at 5:07 on Monday. Who knows? Maybe he'll end up in Pittsburgh and he and George Pickens and DK Metcalf can have a big love fest. But I am just so glad that here in Detroit, we've got a quarterback who gives a rat's you-know-what about his teammates, who gives a crap, who cares, who's a leader, who wears the C on his chest and is a true captain. We're a couple weeks into free agency. Teams are scooping up quarterbacks. They're signing backups. They're signing bridge guys. They're looking at veterans. And Aaron Rodgers remains unemployed. Couldn't even come to a deal with the Pittsburgh Steelers, who are desperate for a quarterback, who haven't had a real one since Big Ben retired. I love every minute of this. I felt so badly for Robert Saleh, Detroit's own, and those teammates of Rodgers last year when he just decided, mandatory minicamp. Can't make it. I'll be overseas on a trip. And he was filming his Netflix special or whatever and the ayahuasca stuff. It's gross. You think Jared Goff would never do something like that? Look what Sam Darnold did in Minnesota last year. He's not back there. The Vikings let him walk. but he won 14 football games. He was a hell of a leader for that team. They rallied around him in that locker room. And he had been maligned and everything else. And, Jets and Niners and Panthers, nothing stuck for Sam Darnold. It's a great story. But he was a great teammate. And the Vikings let him walk and supposedly thought about Aaron Rodgers for about 2 seconds. And they're like, no, we're going to go with a quarterback who's never taken a snap before in the NFL, and J.J. McCarthy. And they still believe they can win the division. I think they can too. I think the Packers can win the division. I think the Lions can win the division. I don't think the Bears can, but hey, people in Chicago are raising that banner for their offseason championship. I just love the fact that really the last time we looked at Aaron Rodgers as a legitimate player, the Lions have basically ended his career, at least for now. Last year, did that really count in New York? He was terrible. 2022, week 18, Lions spoil the Packer party. It really has kind of been the end of Rodgers. I don't know. Maybe the Steelers don't sign him. Maybe he ends up with the Giants, although the Giants just signed Jameis Winston. I think it's awesome. He deserves what he gets based upon what he did to his teammates last year. That's the bottom line. And Aaron Glenn got there, and the first thing Aaron Glenn did was, I don't want that here. We're developing a culture where guys show up. Guys are there for their teammates. I'm not bringing that back here. Loved Aaron Glenn for doing that. Aaron Glenn might have ended Aaron Rodgers' career twice. 2022, week 18, and when he told him, we're good. We're going to sign Justin Fields instead. Look, Aaron Rodgers had a great career. He's going to the Hall of Fame. All right, so I'm just throwing that out there. All right, we are back again tomorrow with a Tuesday edition of Locked On Lions. Thanks for making us your first listen, everybody. Checking us out wherever you get your podcasts. Talk to you again tomorrow.